हाँ तो अभी से बोल दिया जाए
हाँ
कि कल 9:30 का है।
यस यस हाँ बिल्कुल
तो पहले से बोल दिया जाए तो
हाँ भाई पंडित जी ये एक मिनट मैंने ड्यू टू सम अनअवॉइडेबल सर्कमस्टेंसेस today's first stop is postponed. Postponed.
लिंक मुझे भेज देते। लाइव कर दिया आपको, लेकिन मेरे को लिंक भेजेंगे
सर 1 मिनट में आपको व्हाट्सएप कर दूंगा।
हाँ
थोड़ा सा
सेट कर रहा था, लेकिन लिंक मेरे पास नहीं।
अच्छा ये हो गया है लाइव तो एक मिनट।
कौन लड़ाई करते हैं
मैम क्या पूछता है मतलब टिपिकल चीज वो है मेरे को पता नहीं पड़ा उसको
क्या चीज?
मैम को सब आपको साथ में शेयर
तो भाई आपका यूज करेंगे हॉटस्पॉट कैसे यूज करेंगे? तो मैं यहाँ से शेयरिंग कर देता हूँ आपको। अरे कैमरा ऑन करना तो कैमरा ऑन है, केबल लगा दी वाईफाई ये HDMI।
I think that's actually possible. Which then explains why you had trouble. Explains that. You know, explains why you had trouble. You're missing pieces.
अरे
ये
केबल
मैं आपको भेज देता हूँ व्हाट्सएप लिए आप देखो।
सर आपके ठीक है, 1 मिनट आपको वो लिंक डाल रहा हूँ, लिंक डाल रहा हूँ।
को क्या फॉरवर्ड करनी है, ठीक
आ गया सर? ओके
Well, at least I can see.
सर अब वो आ रहे हैं टेस्टिंग के लिए कितने टाइम निकाल?
वो लंच के आसपास
सर लंच के आसपास तो मैंने उनको बोला सर आप किसी को भी, कहीं मेरे को नहीं किसी से भी आप लिंक होगी एक बार टेस्ट कर लीजिए ना। ज्वाइन होके एक मिनट
ये एक काम करो पहले इसको डाल दो आप तो उसका टाइम हो जाएगा।
One.
आप ऑनलाइन आइए आप?
यस
आप है क्या?
अभी बंद
नहीं है मैम, ऑनलाइन आइए आप ऑनलाइन आइए।
Hang a crooked number here and just all really double.
ये मैं आपको उस पर भेजूंगा वो
मैं वो व्हाट्सएप पे डाल दो ना।
व्हाट्सएप पे डाल दिया आपको
डाल दिया क्या आपने?
वो आप उसमें डाल दो उसको ऑन कर दो स्विच ऑन
कर दिया सर, चालू है।
कर दिया
हाँ जूम इतना चालू है।
ज्वाइन किया किसी ने
सर कोई भी नहीं अभी तो।
उसमें डाल दो आप मैसेज
चैट में डाल देता हूँ, चैट में डाल देता हूँ।
और बोले तो उनको बोल देना दूसरा इंक्वायरी करता है कल वो इन्फॉर्म नहीं कर पाया प्रॉपरली।
अच्छा
क्या कर क्या था हमने शेड्यूल
एक मिनट
और नाश्ता कर लो अभी
टेप बनाई टेप
Does it seem like his arm angle really changed on that curveball? Yeah, it does. It looks like everything slows down too. It's just bad to say. Look at it. And look, you look at that. It's a really big thing. From a, you know, big
I am him. हाँ
यस यस हाँ यस सर क्या शेयर वापस क्यों नहीं आ रहा? शेयरिंग
तो मैम स्क्रीन तो शेयर होगी ना, स्क्रीन आपको कर देना शेयर में।
पीपीटी शेयर होना चाहिए ना सर, अभी तो हुआ था वापस बंद हो गया।
मैम मेरे यहाँ से तो ये वो नेट की प्रॉब्लम आ रही है या तो आपके उसमें।
आपका तो ये खुद का दिख रहा है मेरे को, आपका दिख रहा है ये वाला स्क्रीन। अभी हुआ था बस।
हुआ था क्या?
John,
मैंने आपको ये किया
अरे वापस आया था वापस कहाँ गया? वापस बंद हो गया।
ये आ गया ना मैम आपका?
You cannot start screen share while the other participating is sharing. अगर आप share कर रहे हो तो नहीं कर सकते।
आप अपने आप आउट करो,
तो यार मैं आउट करूंगा तो फिर
दूसरे को आउट करो ना, दूसरे को क्या पूछ रहा है?
मैं आउट हो जाऊंगा तो फिर यहाँ से
तो बाहर वाले कैसे कर रहे हैं participate?
बाहर वाला तो मैं वो मेरे को शेयर कर रहे हैं।
फिर आप कर रहे हैं।
हाँ,
हाँ वही टेक्निकल चीज सीख ले।
वो मेरे को शेयर कर रहे हैं, वहां से कर रहे हैं और
मेरे को यहाँ खड़े रहना है।
हाँ आपको यहाँ
हाँ।
करना है।
नहीं तो मैम यहाँ से चलाएंगे तो वैसे ही मैम
क्योंकि मैं ये शेयर कर रहा हूँ, ये किया मैंने शेयर, स्क्रीन शेयर की, मेरी स्क्रीन शेयर की आपको,
तो ऊंचे नीचे कौन करेगा, ऊपर नीचे?
वो आपको ही करना पड़ेगा।
Participating होगा तो
रिपीट आपको मैम, मैं बात समझी मैम, मैं बता रहा हूँ आपको।
क्या लगा है?
मैम आप जो है ना, आप अपने लैपटॉप से ऑनलाइन देखिए, सब कुछ हम तो देख रहे हैं आप।
आपको देख रहे हैं यहाँ पे।
अरे वो तो समझ में आया मेरे को, लेकिन ठीक है हो रहा है।
सर अभी तो खाली वेलनोन नेपा एमडी
यस अभी आया, देखिए
प्रोफेसर,
हाँ वहाँ मैसेज दे दो उसके अंदर।
ये आ रहा है ना मैम, आपकी तो आ रहा है।
यस यस।
हाँ,
इनका अभी निकाल दो यहाँ से, अभी नहीं करना इनका।
मैडम का
ये क्यों हो रहा है?
हाँ टेस्टिंग वो बाद में कर लेते हैं, अच्छा नहीं लगता है वहाँ पे।
ये पूरी स्क्रीन को दिखाई दे रही है।
हाँ,
पूरी स्क्रीन
वो मैम आपको करना पड़ेगा ना वहाँ
लंच
से।
के बाद में कर देंगे, लंच के टाइम पे सर।
ऐसा बोल रही हूँ सर, मेरा कहना है ये मार्केट का बदल चुकी, मुझे आर्टिकल रखना होगा साथ में।
वो स्क्रीन नहीं चाहिए।
वो स्क्रीन कैसे होगा मैम?
हम लोग रोज ही करते हैं वहाँ पढ़ा।
नहीं 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 नहीं
ये हाँ ये बीच में आ जाता है, वो साइड में आ जाता है, वो दिखता नहीं
मना
अगले
कर दिया ना, उन्होंने मना कर दिया कि मेरा नहीं करना है।
को बना दिया।
आपको कौन आया था मेरे पास? आपको पता नहीं?
नहीं
हाँ उन्होंने मना कर दिया, बोले मैं खाली बैठूंगी, मतलब कोई क्वेश्चन ना हो किसी को, बाकी आप ही पसंद।
वो जुड़ नहीं सकते, ऐसा कुछ बात है।
हाँ तो जो भी हो, तो आप ही
उसी के
करना
लिए
है।
तो नहीं थी, मुझे क्या पता।
नहीं आपको अपना करना है ना।
हाँ मेरा
हाँ तो मैंने मना कर दिया कि मेरा नहीं करना।
नई बात है।
हाँ अच्छा अभी
मेरा करना है,
आपने वो लगा दिया,
मुझे
वो लगा दिया।
भंडारी साहब
मुझे मैसेज डाल दे।
का तो ये था कि इनको प्रेजेंट करना ही है, आप
क्या
जाइए।
करें वो आगे भाई ऐसे नहीं होगा बार बार चेंज, मतलब आपको मना कर दिया, उन्होंने
हाँ
मना कर
मुझे
दिया,
कोई दिक्कत नहीं है सर,
खत्म बच्चे तक तो आगे मत बढ़ाइए।
मैंने पढ़ाई।
हाँ हर बार क्या वो चेंज में बहुत प्रॉब्लम होता है। हाँ मैं मना कर दिया था।
रात को कितने होना है? तो ये मेरे जाने के बाद
हाँ इसको निकाल दो,
चैट में डाल रहा हूँ मैं ये।
चैट में डाल दो।
हाँ,
जनरल नहीं बोल सकते, तुम्हें 4-5 जन है मेरे ख्याल से।
तो वो चैट में आ जाएगा ना, सब देख लेंगे चैट में।
ठीक है
हम लोग को मैसेज बंद कर दिए, वेट कर रहे हो। और भेजिए
इसको डाल दो।
मैसेज डाल दिया मैसेज।
क्या
9:30 बजे
कभी नहीं द्वारा अभी
प्रोफेसर वेलनोन सर का
वही बैठा है बाबा।
अरे एक बार इसका आउट कैमरे में लगाया आउट एक बार
सब रेडी है, रेडी। केबल लगा नहीं।
Last year. Became homeless. Hit the All-Star game itself, and then hit a homer, and it's first game following the Midsummer Classic.
पूरन जी ये आपकी जेब में डालो, इस कैमरा को अंदर कर देगा।
He was
होगा उनका कहने का मतलब है कि मैं तो वो वहाँ रहूंगी तो मेरे को ही करना है उनका वो परमिशन नहीं होती है।
अच्छा
मुझे लगा कंफ्यूजन है क्योंकि इतने दिन से ये बात चल रही है और सर ने बोला आपको जाना ही है कंफ्यूजन में। मैं आपको एक तो वो स्क्रीन हमारे को नहीं दिखाई देती सर। लेकिन मैं आपको दे देती हूँ रिपीटेड मटेरियल दे देती हूँ आपको।
मटेरियल तो मैं लैपटॉप लगा के आपका लगाना होता है।
एक होता है ना जो फर्स्ट शेयर करते हैं वही शो होता है और साइड में वो दूसरा रहता है।
तो मैं आपको ऐसे कर रहा हूँ ना शेयर तो
समझे नहीं मेरी बात मेरे को
तो मैंने आपको मेरी स्क्रीन शेयर कर दी।
समझे नहीं हम लोग कैसे करते हैं ये उनका आर्टिकल है मैं किसी के बिहार पे करती हूँ मुझे साइड में रखना होगा उनको कंसेप्ट क्लियर है।
हाँ तो वही मैं कह रहा हूँ ना जैसे कल जिन्होंने भी किया बाहर से वो भी तो यही कर रहे थे।
अच्छा
वो बाहर से कर रहे थे उनका प्रेजेंटेशन चल रहा था और उनका भी वीडियो आ रहा था ऊपर अपन उनको हाइड कर रहे थे।
ठीक है तो ये कहाँ रखना मटेरियल
आपके पास पीपीटी में है क्या? शॉर्ट में है ना आपके पास पीपीटी में है ना?
वो तो बहुत शॉर्ट में ओनली पॉइंट।
ये प्रेजेंटेशन तो चाहिएगा ना फिर आपको इस पे डिस्प्ले के लिए।
ना ये भी चाहिए तो दिखाना ही नहीं तो फिर पीपीटी क्यों बनाते हैं? हम लोग वहाँ पढ़ाते हैं ना इंग्लिश और हिंदी के दोनों स्टूडेंट होते हैं जो मेन पे रहता है उसको फोकस करते हैं वो साइड वाला दिखता ही नहीं हमेशा यही है जूम में। आगे कितनी प्रेजेंटेशन देंगे आपको ये पूरी स्क्रीन दिख रही है मतलब जो शेयर करेंगे वही दिखना चाहिए ना।
एक मिनट
Australia, no kids that baseball back in Australia unless you play, right? Or unless you play as a kid.
नाश्ता करना है अभी तो टाइम रहेगा ना सर।
अभी तो है टाइम अभी तो है
ब्रेक
टाइम। हाँ हाँ
That baseball, you know, for
ये कंफ्यूजन ही है मुझे ऐसा लग रहा है तो करने
down there, fall on some jet lag. Hey, those games count. This year.
देखिए सर मैं बताती हूँ दो फाइल आप रखिए फर्स्ट आप शेयर करिए कोई भी।
जी सर ये अभी आया ना ये देखिए।
हाँ ये व्यक्ति जो भी है यहाँ से अपन शेयर करेंगे जो भी
ये शेयर किया
शेयर वाला
जैसे
सपोज ये है
ठीक है
ये
शेयर किया अपन ने
आ गया।
You have to go to the big bats.
आधी स्क्रीन में आ गया इसको पकड़ भी सकते हैं। वैसे भी हो जाता है। अब इधर ओपन करना है तो वो हमारा अपना ओपन उधर कर सकते हैं। अब वर्ड की कोई भी फाइल आपकी खुली होगी ना किधर
वर्ड की तो
हाँ,
ये ले लीजिए इसके
स्क्रीन बंद है
वो भी वो
मैं ओपन क्यों नहीं रहा फटाफट।
Just a fastball running in on the right. Now we see a fastball out. Now Wilson at first base. On shakes it back ball went off the plate.
बहुत सारी चीजें नहीं है इतने सॉफ्टवेयर स्लो हो रहा कंप्यूटर।
ये तो खाली जूम के लिए है बाकी वो अलग है प्रेजेंटेशन के लिए अलग है।
धीरे धीरे खुल रहा है इसी से पता चल रहा बहुत स्लो है।
And I stick with the fastball right here or what? Up with the strike zone again. Hey, it hurts his only team fastball. Right. Getting back to the first step back.
काम ही नहीं कर रहा है कि बटन
Take it off. Hit it right field.
गड़बड़ है सिस्टम को इसको क्या करे कैसा
एक मिनट
ओके करके हटी नहीं कर
You don't want to do any back ball. We marked it in the winter field. And you can give us those back. You want to say,
जूम की वजह जूम
this is a mistake. Yes, I think the pitch selection was good at the location. Not
नेसेसरी था शेयरिंग था और वो वाली चीज तो हमें
just aren't able to get that perfect ground that ball. We'll get flying. First on the run, they can score from first base.
क्या हो रहा है
Off the batter.
मैं तो अपने से करूंगी सर महाराज का होगा तो ये तो और मुश्किल हो जाएगा
नहीं, अगर वो उसके लिए चाहिए तो वो लैपटॉप अलग है।
हाँ अभी ये
Consecutive doubles. Think about it. The base hits all
देखिए अब आपकी स्क्रीन क्या बोलती है स्क्रीन पे मैंने क्या दिख रहा है
I'll keep the thermal down just in case.
City Cardinals have to pick up on something here when they go back to that dugout.
जो शहर होगा ये दिख रहा है हमारे पास पेपर है
In the morning,
हाँ ठीक है व्यू में देखता हूँ व्यू में आता है क्या है
बस मतलब अकॉर्डिंग अपनी सुविधा के हिसाब से हम ये हमेशा लेकिन मैंने अभी दिल्ली में सेमिनार में किया था वहां पे भी इसी तरह से रखा था
ऐसा ही
हाँ साइड में कोई वो शेयर हो ही नहीं रहा था सर इतनी देर से वेट कर रहे थे
ये वाला मैम
ये तो हाँ चलो ये हो रहा है
हाँ।
अब मैं साइड में जो अपना रख रही हूँ एक बार छोटा सा करना है
ओके कर दीजिए वो मिनिमाइज होगा नहीं एक बार
इस पे नहीं हो रहा
yeah, I did you know how.
मैं कैंसिल कर दीजिए इसको और
रिलीव हो रहा है ओके ये वाला स्क्रीन यहाँ तक आ गई तो आपका दिख ही रहा है साइड वाला तो उसमें दिख ही रहा है ये जो अपन इधर करके थे वो भी अच्छे से ऊपर ही रहता है अपने सुविधा के हिसाब से लैपटॉप में इधर साइड में रहता है
अच्छा या तो कोई ना कोई पर्सनल सेटिंग है वो कुछ ना कुछ उसमें
Of course.
Yeah. It's so sad when you're missing pieces.
Let's see if we can get this piece.
John.
What?
That was too many.
Look, I think,
That was too many.
I should have gone that piece. Exactly. How is that people missing?
There was maybe underneath. There's a little bit.
You find some.
No, it's confusing, Ben. No, but the problem is we're missing pieces, which is the most reason why we had. Mom's had so much. difference.
See any.
No.
So we've done John. It's all-
No, not you've done that.
He did, so. The actors were sitting around all the time.
Well, no. Okay.
This one, what is this?
You need, that's gonna be a purple cloud, a purple cloud with a little bit of red. So
I'm going to be at this
Entry.
conference. But in the meantime, you can talk with these are pieces here. This is gaps.
There's a gap, so. Well, that's a sound. No, not this, the TV.
Okay.
No, why is the sound of the conference?
Take possible early, mistakes early from Luis Castillo. Go out for Tyler O'Neill. He swings and misses. One.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi, is that Pakana? So I want to make sure that
Now,
you
please
can-
unmute. Please unmute yourself. I am not able to hear you.
Oh,
I am not
okay.
able to hear you. उनका म्यूट कर रहा था ना you I am not able to hear you.
नमस्कार सर।
नमस्कार साहब, नमस्कार।
ये बेचारा परेशान हो रहा था इसको
हाँ नहीं,
सोने का टाइम हो गया
नेचुरली
उधर।
नेचुरली।
इनको मैंने मैसेज तो दिया,
हाँ एक मिनट।
बुलाओगे कभी?
हाँ बोल रहा हूँ, अब बुला रहा हूँ।
Can you hear me now?
Are you able to listen to me?
इसको यार
एक ही जगह है।
अभी देखो सुनो इस समय
हाँ शर्मा साहब, नमस्कार।
नमस्कार पोखरना साहब। आई एम ट्राइंग टू टेल नेपे प्लीज अनम्यूट। उसको चैट
हाँ
से
नमस्कार
भेजना।
साहब।
हाँ आप उसको ईमेल भी कर दो अगर उसका ईमेल है या
उस
उसका
आवाज को
नंबर
बंद
है
करिए।
तो मुझे बताओ, मैं
उस आवाज
फोन
को बंद करिए जरा।
मैं उसको फोन कर देता हूँ। आप मुझे नंबर दो या आप फोन कर दो कि भाई अनम्यूट करो।
हाँ नमस्कार साहब।
नमस्कार। आप उनको बोलो कि अनम्यूट करें। आप उनका फोन करो या ईमेल करो।
पूरा 5 मिनट चालू है।
नहीं वो
Hello.
हाँ गुड गुड गुड। थैंक यू फॉर अनम्यूटिंग।
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Good. And the name is pronounced Nepi.
Sorry. We are sorry. But I just wanted to text you and tell you to unmute yourself.
Okay, well, that's fine. Now, can you see these slides? I will just put them up.
Kindly share your screen.
That's what I'm doing. Can you see them?
Yes.
Excellent. So I think that Pakana is talking before me, but at least we've got my slides shared.
Dr. Pokarna, please speak. Dr. Pokarna, please say hello to Professor Nepe. Nepe. Hello.
Hello.
Just make sure he's not muted.
Hello. I can actually,
We are not able to listen to you. Actually, kindly unmute yourself.
no, I think that we've just spoken about unmuting. And so Ravi Sharma is indicating that I'm unmuted.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can hear me there, but keep in touch and you can see me.
There. So kindly unmute.
Kindly show your screen so that others can see it.
Okay, so so I'm sharing screen here. Can you see me?
Not yet. I mean, we can see you, but not your Now we can see your presentation.
उनका तो आ रहा है ना अपने स्पीकर पे।
Excellent, good.
But
Well-
kindly wait 1 minute, because there is a conference of people there in Udaipur. They want to see it on their screen. Once it, yeah, I think I see that on their screen as well. Thank you, Professor Nepe.
Okay, so you can see me, you can hear me, and you can see these slides.
अनम्यूट कर दिया मैं।
स्पीकर चालू करो सब भाई भी।
Yes, both of them I can see.
हाँ ये
हाँ से नहीं हो रहा है, क्या चक्कर है? अभी तो चालू तो था ये।
So I'm assuming I'm now muted.
Dr. Pokarna,
Liz, just give me my stand. Yeah.
they keep muting me so that nobody can hear anybody. Don't mute me, please. At least one person should be audible to all.
Okay, well, I'm not muting you.
Good.
Can you hear me?
Thank you. He keeps doing it, but then he's not speaking, so we can't hear him.
ये इनकी आ रही है।
Dr. Pokarna or anybody at the DSKIRE, can you hear me?
पोखराना जी,
वो देखिए उनने स्क्रीन आ रहा था, उसको बंद कर दिया.
Hello. Yeah, Professor Vernon.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Good morning.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
बोलिए आप बोलिए।
Hello, Professor Vernon.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Can you speak louder, sir? Or
I'm
increase
speaking very loudly.
your mic volume.
Hello.
Lovely.
नहीं पढ़ रहा है, सुनाई तो पढ़ रहा है, मैं पढ़ रहा हूँ। ओके ओके नहीं पढ़ रहा है, ओके कंफ्यूजन है यार, ये थोड़ा कंफ्यूजन है।
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, we will start. We will introduce you first.
Hmm.
We will introduce you first, and then you will start at 9:30. We will start at 9:30 exactly.
Okay, now what about you? You speaking earlier.
Yes. Now there was some problem, so I could not do it. There was problem of this the communication about timing to our team members.
Okay, well, if you want me to talk earlier, that's fine.
Yeah, just a minute. We will introduce you to our audience.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah.
And Liz, bring me my clock.
लाइव चल रहा है अपना यूट्यूब चैनल पे। आपके उस पे डाला है मैंने। अरे भाई स्क्रीन एकदम सुनने काम होती पढ़ने में भी क्यों
आज कोई है तो है नहीं।
लोगों के बीच में एकदम
मुझे कोई दिक्कत नहीं है। जरूर करेंगे। उधर से लोग
तो यही चल रहा है। आप एवरी टाइम लिंक
लाइव आ रहा है क्या?
अपने लिंक यानी आप लिंक एवरी टाइम नई लिंक जनरेट होगी तो आपको नई लिंक भी हमें भेजनी है। वही वो दिक्कत है। हम लोग को जुड़े
वो आपने उस सब
Professor, keep your speaker volume, microphone volume as high as you can, so that others can hear you. We are able to hear, but little louder would be better.
Is this louder?
Yeah. And we are, I live in Elk Grove, California, not far from you, about 1,000 miles.
Oh, hello.
Thank you. I don't know why they are taking so long. I was able to see your screen. Now I can't see on their screen. I can see on mine, but now Kothari Institute is not able to see your screen.
कैमरा चालू है ना?
वो ये स्क्रीन
कैमरा चालू है ना?
Okay, so we start the session now.
Are you able to see his screen?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Professor, yes, kindly introduce him. I will mute myself.
Yes, I am doing it. I am doing it, sir. Thank you. Okay, so our this first session of the second day of this international conference starts now. Due to some unavoidable problems, actually I could not deliver. Okay, sorry. So I'm repeating it again. So we begin with the first session of second day of the international conference to sustain and due to some unavoidable circumstances, actually I could not deliver any talk. So we straight away begin with the webinar by Professor Varman. Professor Varman is basically a neurologist, and he works in the field of neurology as a professional expert. But he has hobby and he has interest in other areas also. And he is working with Dr. Edward Close, who is a theoretical physicist and a cosmologist. So that combination, Nepe and Close, they have developed a remarkable new formalism to reconcile science as is defined on today with spirituality, and they have developed a mathematical model, and a new type of mathematics has been evolved by this pair of scientists, and I treat them as great scientists of the century. Actually, Einstein tried to combine space with time. And what they have done is that the current science can be combined with spirituality, that is something like that we have parapsychic process or consciousness in the case of spirituality. So how to bring it down into the domain of science, that is what they have done. So I will not take more time. You will see that what he has done is absolutely outstanding, in my opinion. So Professor Varman, kindly start.
Hello, I'm Vernon Nepe. I'm assuming that I can be heard from both sources. Is that correct? And you can also see me.
You are seen on Zoom.
Good. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to actually talk to you about an extraordinarily important area. And you will have the opportunity to hear these new ideas as a paradigm for all of reality for the first time, because I'm introducing to the public some laws for the first time. So this is very, very exciting. This is some work that has developed over a period of several years. We started this in 2015, and it was a hypothesis or if you want, some would say a speculation. And now we have proven it. So you are hearing
Yes. Yes.
components pertaining to Gimel, which is the third component of reality, which almost none of you have ever heard of, and how that fits into nature. So this, I want to make sure that people are hearing me on both sets. Am I audible? Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, please continue.
And okay, and so we're going to talk about Gimel today. And this is literally a dramatic, groundbreaking discovery. We're not calling it groundbreaking. Several of my colleagues, particularly in the area of dimensional biopsychophysics, and that includes my good friend, Dr. Surendra Pakana, who invited me to talk. Thank you, Dr. Pakana. Several have thought this is groundbreaking knowledge. And it was developed by my colleague, Dr. Werner Neppi, myself, and Dr. Edward Close. This is an amazing discovery because we are talking about the third component of reality. Very, very important. We have one minor problem, and that is my slides, let me see, are now moving on. So let me just take you along in terms of history. Some of you will remember that there was a major revolutionary moment in the 20th century. Space and time were unified for the first time. We called it space-time unification. And this was in 1908, Dr. Hermann Minkowski in Cologne, Germany, addressed a major conference of physicians and physicists, and he spoke of the unification of time and space. This was something that was so broad that even Einstein initially did not regard this as relevant. But soon it became apparent that there was a unification of time and space, that we no longer could speak of time being separate and space being separate. There was a necessary union of the two. So that was the first revolutionary moment of the 20th century. We then moved 100 years later to the year 2011. And we had the great privilege, myself and Edward Close, of extending this, the unification of time, space, and consciousness. The views of space, time, and a broader consciousness we recognized were universally applicable to the sciences, to mathematics, and to philosophical ideation. This reflected a paradigm shift, and only a kind of tethered union of the three from the very beginning will preserve an independent identity. And this is what we wrote in 2011. Very, very exciting. No longer were we talking about just time and space. We were talking about time and space and consciousness. This unification of space-time was incomplete of itself. There was more than just this necessary union of the two. We had argued from 1908 through to this time of 2011 that there was a union of the three and that the third is called consciousness. Now, this is a little bit of a problem because it's not really consciousness that's the same as space and time. Space and time were unified. That consciousness, we realized, was something of relevance, but it wasn't fully unified. And we know now that that consciousness we are calling is likely Gimel. We're calling it Gimel, the third component of reality. It's actually more than consciousness. Gimel exists in everything. So we have the three substrates, space, time, consciousness. They're fundamental, they're tethered, they're related. They cannot be totally separated because in every single thing, in every atom, in every atomic particle, in the whole universe, there's always space, time, and consciousness. They fundamentally are tethered in some way. But that third component, that we're calling here consciousness, is more than consciousness. It reflects this third substance, the term Gimel, which is the third letter of the Hebrew alphabet. And that third component is why we're calling it Gimel. Let's imagine an elephant. And the elephant here has a trunk, but he doesn't recognize it's his object. He just knows it's always with him. The trunk seems separate, but the trunk is part of him. It cannot be separated from him. This is the key to what we call the union of that space-time consciousness. In this elephant, there is a trunk. It's always there. It involves some kind of hidden knowing. This parallel, this metaphor, is one of Gimel, which is in union with everything that is stable. Now, I'm emphasizing this. Gimel, stability, stable. Anything in the whole universe that is stable has to have Gimel. Now, you might say, wait a minute, this is very nice, but how do we know? This is ridiculous. For centuries, we've known about space, and then we've known about time, and then we've known about space-time. And some people have said there's such a thing as consciousness, but maybe there is, maybe there isn't, but we certainly don't think it's proven. And here I'm about to tell you that Gimel, if you want, something a little more than consciousness, because it's linked up with everything else, is not only present, it is proven. So we can prove the existence of Gimel. We can prove the existence of this third component of reality. It's not an easy concept, but we were able to do the mathematics and demonstrated it existed. And it exists in mathematics. It exists in relation to what we call the life elements. It exists in the cosmos, in dark matter and dark energy linked up there, and it exists empirically in the Large Hadron Collider. So I'm going to repeat that because we're talking about what some are regarding as the major discovery of the 21st century, that it exists in the Large Hadron Collider. When we look at that data and we compare it with our data in relation to Gimel, it is exactly the same. It exists in the cosmos. When we look at it in relation to some comparisons on dark matter and dark energy, a very difficult concept because we can look at it proportionately compared with electrons and compared with the protons and the neutrons together. And we can also look at it in terms of mathematics. It all fits and it all is very exciting. So Gimel exists. Now, many of you are familiar with the great polymath Leibniz. And there was a problem that we had right at the beginning. And the problem right at the beginning was, how can something happen from nothing? You had nothing, and then suddenly there was something. Did that fit? We will show you that Gimel exists, and there is not such a thing as nothing. There is always a something, but that something exists in a different kind of way, in a different kind of reality. So we could say that mathematically the atom has to exist and the atom has to be stable. The second thing is the atom can only exist if we have Gimel. There is always something from the beginning, but that is a beginning that we talk about, but it doesn't really happen as a beginning because there never was a beginning or an end in the eternal kind of reality. So the something that exists is Gimel. Gimel is the primordial component of all of reality. It came long before mass, long before energy. It's the primordial component of reality. And we might say, if it came long before mass and energy, was there something else? And maybe it was some kind of formlessness. And then people started talking about the equivalent of the Big Bang. And all of this became stable. And that stability is the key. And we would find things rotating around like vortices, the vortex, which is fundamental in terms of what is real. Rotations and movements. And now we have that third component. So that third form of reality is Gimel, and it is linked up with what Dr. Close and I have called true units or triadic rotational units of equivalence. They are rotating units of equivalence, and within that fabric is embedded what we're calling Gimel. Now you might say, but why do we want to introduce a third component? If you look at it from a mathematical point of view, there needs to be a third aspect. There is a famous theorem from the 17th century, which took a long, long time to discover and prove, called Fermat's last theorem. We cannot have two components. There has to be a third aspect. And that third aspect is from Fermat's last theorem. We've realized this third component is neither mass nor energy, but it produces stability mathematically. And that is Gimel. So that's very exciting. Now, we therefore have to prove that there is a unification of reality, and that unification of reality produces a hunt for a unified theory. Now, some of you might say, but we've been looking for a unified theory of reality for 100 years. We have never been able to find it. Albert Einstein spent the last 20 years of his life looking for that unification. Even he did not solve it. And it goes all the way back to mathematicians and physicists of hundreds of years ago. This is the hunt for the unified theory. And we've been very fortunate, Ed Close and I, and I'm saying fortunate because I don't believe that this is our own discovery, that this is relating to some kind of unification that might be a guidance of some kind. But in any event, we've been very fortunate to realize that we could unify reality in this hunt for a unified theory, that we could look at this empirically based on quantum theory. And you all are aware of the Large Hadron Collider in Switzerland, where billions of dollars have been spent in terms of collider data on fundamental particles. And they've got a great deal of knowledge in this regard. Let's imagine that those quantum collider data in the Large Hadron Collider show up if we convert the electron to 1, we unify it to 1, we know that we can do measures for the proton and for the neutron. It's very, very complex, this. But basically, when we convert the electron, the proton, and the neutron to integral figures, in other words, numbers, they're not approximate numbers, they're exact data, using a technique, a mathematical technique that has been developed by my colleague, Dr. Edward Close, who is, to me, one of the most creative mathematicians alive today. He developed the technique of what is called the calculus of dimensional distinctions. I worked with Ed with this, but this is fundamentally relating to the work of Dr. Close. And when we start using those figures, we can quantify the different components. We mentioned electrons, protons, neutrons. We can get exact figures from the Large Hadron Collider. And amazingly, those figures are exactly the same as our figures, which we look at in terms of these true units, these triadic rotational units of equivalence in quantum theory. It's amazing. And more so, we can actually not only look at those fundamental particles, we can look at the life elements, the elements of life. And guess what? We discover that the life elements have more Gimel in them than all the other elements. And they all have a mathematical component. They all fit in to divisions of exponents of 108 cubed. So we have carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, sulfur, nitrogen, all of them are the life elements. There are others that are also fitting in this model. Silicon is another one. And the third one is there are two noble elements. There's helium and neon as well. All of them, these life elements, fit at a higher level of Gimel than any other elements. So when we start talking about the elements of life, we have something a little different. And moreover, we can look at the cosmological data. We talk about dark matter and dark energy. Could it be that dark matter and dark energy are also linked in a certain way with Gimel? We believe they are, based on, again, the mathematics. So we've got this height for the unification of reality and for a unified theory, but not quite completely, because we cannot develop this with electromagnetism and the gravitational model. That doesn't fully fit in. Although we've talked about these vortices, these rotations that involve movements, and we come very close there. How close? If you calculate out these different elementary particles, there is the electron, which has loads and loads and loads of Gimel. You'll remember we made the electron score in terms of mass energy, just one. Gimel is 105. Gimel is far, far more than that whole component of mass and energy. Moreover, there are protons, but there is such a thing as quarks. And there are, if you want, up quarks in protons, and there is one down quark. And when you start doing those calculations, and neutrons, the same thing, but different kinds of quarks. And suddenly, these figures correspond. They correspond not approximately, but you'll remember they correspond exactly of the structure of the atom with the quarks, the up and down quarks, and inside the nucleus with the neutron and the proton and the electron. Very, very fascinating, this fundamental atomic structure in quantum physics, where we are able to demonstrate using this calculus of dimensional distinctions as opposed to the calculus of Newton and Leibniz, which is called infinitesimal calculus, which people have used since their discovery, but unfortunately, it's not linked up with the fundamental quantum discoveries. How fundamental are they? You can see these different kinds of protons, of electrons, linked up with Gimel and what are called true units and proportions of true units. There's more hydrogen than anywhere else in cosmology, and hydrogen is overwhelming in terms of proportion of Gimel to true units. The rest of them, of these life elements, and that includes, incidentally, an isotope of hydrogen called deuterium, they all involve 76.2% of true units. The substance that, besides anything, besides actual hydrogen itself, contains more Gimel than any other substance is one called water. And one's able to see that water is interesting, hydrogen hydroxide, but it also contains more, maybe, spirituality than anything else. Some people will keep on saying, well, you know, water is fundamental. And there might be a question of, Silicone, where does that fit in? Silicone actually seems to have the properties of a life element. And there is data suggesting that in other kinds of contexts, silicone is a life element. Now, the other thing that is very interesting is people say, but you mentioned phosphorus, but phosphorus doesn't contain the same number of true units. Surely phosphorus is a life element. Phosphorus, like ATP, adenosine triphosphate, and all the different components of phosphorus are mobilizing in terms of life, but it's not really a life element. Incidentally, the substance or the element with the most amount of gimel, if we look at it in terms of property, is iron. So here is a slide, very important. Just bear in mind that you can find the proportion of gimel to triadic rotational units of equivalence in everything, and the elements of life are by far the most. Now, here is what I call the miracle proportions. You remember there is this Planck probe that looks at differences in terms of proportions. And if you convert these volumetrically, because everything is three-dimensional, there's nothing that is one-dimensional. But if you convert them, you discover, using hydrogen as the major cosmological element, and then generally helium and somewhat oxygen, making up 100% of the abundance of in cosmology, you discover that the figures for dark matter, for dark energy, when combined, proportionately are linked up exactly with the same Gimel story, Gimel proportions in cosmology. So we've had three different levels of evidence that we have this necessary third substance, Gimel, that if we don't use Gimel, it doesn't fit mathematically. And if we do use Gimel, we can apply this at the quantum level, at the life element, micro world, if you want, macro world reality, our regular reality, and cosmologically. So that is very interesting. Gimel has to exist, and it has to be a third component, not mass, not energy, and it's some kind of consciousness. Initially, we thought, this is pure consciousness, but it actually is not really a pure consciousness itself. What else could it be? We don't know. But all we know is Gimel exists with everything. It is linked up. And if you want, the protons and the neutrons work, and the atoms work because we have Gimel. But of course, electrons are fundamental units. The protons and the neutrons are linked up with quarks. So we're talking about macro reality. I don't want to look at the complexity of what we're talking about, but this is something very, very important and very relevant. Gimel is in everything. It pervades every bit of our existence, from the tiniest quantum to the greatest cosmological star. Gimel is always some kind of third component. It's not mass or energy. It's a consciousness or more. In fact, Gimel influences the cosmos. It influences the atoms. It influences everything cosmologically. And Gimel is not only a third substance component, space and time are included as well. In other words, when we talk about consciousness, we're talking about space, time, and consciousness, what I call STC, as well as the calculations, the same scores for the Large Hadron Collider and true units, triadic rotational units of equivalence at the quantum level. It's astonishing. The same scores for dark matter and dark energy in terms of Gimel equivalent. Now, these are all published and have been peer-reviewed. And so dark matter, dark energy, the cosmological equivalent, we have Gimel. And we have the scores for the true units with the elements of life, which incidentally are mathematically linked with 108 cubed at the exponential level. So this is the macro world. And all of these are the elements of reality and water as well. We published this in a rather important paper. It's a sub-paper of a broader paper. I called it Ubiquitous Gimel. And for those of you who are interested, it is in pni.org, which is our website, /groundbreaking and Gimel. And we've regarded it as so critically important that we've separated it into its own article. So here is something very interesting. We can't really call it consciousness. You can see it's more than that because it impacts, and this word impact is very important, on mass and energy. We could more accurately call it Gimel. Strangely enough, this name Gimel, Gimmel, some have suggested maybe it's the God matrix. Maybe spiritually, this is where everything fits in. So you can debate that whole terminology dilemma. But the important point here is consciousness is not beyond time or space. Space is, and here's an extra term, fundamentally embedded in time, and time is fundamentally embedded in consciousness. So remember that we're not talking the same level of priority, time, space, consciousness. We're talking about different levels of priority, with consciousness being the highest level because time is embedded in it and space is fundamentally embedded. So that consciousness is in union with everything. We're calling it Gimel. And ultimately, these substances are all in union together, but hierarchically, space, then time, then consciousness. Now, I'm going to get into some theology here, and people get very upset. How can this scientist dare to talk theology? I'm just going to give you something very interesting, which I found fascinating. In the Bible, in the first chapter of the Bible, in verse 2, it talks about the earth was created, and the way it is sometimes translated is certain masslessness and formlessness, or certain nothingness. The actual Hebrew says tohu vavohu. That tohu means primordial mass. It's the only place it really fits. And vohu, I suspect, is meaning Gimel. It's the primordial mass involving Gimel long before the Big Bang. This is at the origin of existence, except if you're talking infinite reality, there's no infinity. So long before the Big Bang, or what we've sometimes called event horizon, which we wrote about in our book, Reality Begins with Consciousness, came Gimel. This is the something It was never nothing. The key is this term Gimel.
चालू तभी चालू होना चालू ही want to.
I cannot hear what is coming through, but I'm telling you that this might be an astonishing discovery. So the earth in creation was tohu vavohu, the primordial mass on the Gimel. And long before the Big Bang, this is astonishing how we can explain the world existing.
Very good.
So, can you hear me?
No, we can't. Now we can hear you.
Good.
You were muted.
Okay, that's fine. So you were able to presumably see these slides. And the important is, I'm saying that tohu vavohu might be something with a biblical meaning, but which actually fits in with the spiritual, but also with the science. That the concept of the atom is fundamentally incorrect, that there's a third component, which we call Gimel, and that there are three different levels of proof based on the atomic number, those electrons, based on the component of dark matter and dark energy, and the quantum jump. Now you might say, but wait a minute, we're living in a world where there's materialism, and materialism is not bad. It works in 99.9% of cases. It doesn't work always. There are some contradictions in quantum mechanics and relativity. There just are. Feynman, Nobel laureate, just used the phrase that we just got to accept that there are contradictions. There are about 50 of them we've outlined. And the reason is we're not dealing with all of reality. The second one is, for those of you interested in psi phenomena, there are a lot of more contradictions there. And most certainly, the whole concept of survival after bodily death, evolution with developed jumps and statistical complexity and mathematical logic. Effectively, that materialist paradigm, despite the fact that it almost always works, needs revision. It's like talking about an iceberg. 3 dimensions of space in a moment in time. We call it the present, that moment in time. It's incomplete. We just see the top of the iceberg. How do we know it's incomplete? Because there are these 50 contradictions. And yet, and this is very interesting, Dr. Close and I have demonstrated, and we started demonstrating this after we hypothesized this, in our first edition of Reality Begins with Consciousness, that there are 9 finite dimensions. And some of that 3S1T we spoke about is even not complete, because we can only see it in part. So, for example, we can't see X-rays. It's part of our 9-dimensional reality. And that 9-dimensional reality is quantized based on the quantum. And this is why we've mentioned that we are not dealing with fundamental infinitesimal physics, but we are dealing with a physics that is quantized and integral in terms of numbers and involves vortical movements. And we've got to look at everything in 3 dimensions in terms of planes. And this is embedded within the infinite continuity. And this is our model. The infinite continuity and the vortices and the 9 dimensions. Reality is far more than just our 4-dimensional reality of 3 dimensions of space, 3 of time, and what we're hypothesizing is 3 of consciousness. This whole 9-dimensional finite vortical volumetric reality is embedded in what we're calling the infinite continuity. And this was our initial thinking. With the Gabino-Barredo Award in 2013 involving myself, Dr. Vernon Nepi, and my colleague, Dr. Edward Close, who you will soon hear from. And then we wrote our book, Reality Begins with Consciousness, a paradigm shift that works. So there is this Nepi-Close paradigm, and we called it TDVP, or triadic dimensional distinction vortical paradigm. It's a comprehensive paradigm that works, provides a framework for all of science, physical, biological, and spiritual. And we go from the lowest quantum to the entire universe. And it's been very heavily reviewed. We will just say this: all aspects of human experience must be integrated in the search for truth. TDVP, that's the triadic dimensional distinction vortical paradigm, does this and provides the logical, mathematical, scientific framework for all religious, philosophical, and scientific endeavor. The features of TDVP relate to, I suppose the word inducts, the infinite continuity, because everything is embedded in the infinite continuity, which embeds, this is continuous, as opposed to the finite, discrete. These are the natural laws of reality, the 9 dimensions with distinctions. And we can develop a philosophical model, which we have called unified monism. And we mentioned the elephant with the tethering of the different connections. So why is this so important? Because this is like a soup container, which is unending, but which contains, embeds the discrete components of reality. We can't understand the infinite directly. This is just like a mirror. So now, why do I say all of this? These are the laws of nature. They appear to be a model of laws which are universal and applicable to everything. They associate with both the finite and the infinite. This is not supernatural or miraculous. It might look like meaningful coincidences in our 4-dimensional world. And we must conform to these things. And we can look at this in terms of our 9 dimensions, 9 spinning vortical dimensions, proposed in 2011, proven in 2013, and with Gimel proven in 2015. And with the development of ideas going on beyond this. So this is where we have the astronomer's challenge. We have the finite reality being fundamental, but only fundamental when we recognize that this cannot be separated out from the infinite. And we don't understand most of it because we're dealing with a jigsaw puzzle. We're dealing with fundamental laws of reality. Initially, there's several laws, but start looking at this. These This is for the first time I'm speaking about the laws of reality, Vernon Neppi's proposed fundamental laws of reality. Reality, all of it. Law number one, there are three fundamental components to reality: mass and energy, and we know mass, energy are interchangeable, and Gimel. Law number two, Gimel is the ostensible bestower of information. It appears linked to consciousness because it is. It's certainly not something which is conscious, which is mass, or something which is energetic. And yet it's of relevance to mass and energy. Gimel is the bestower of information.
Excuse me, Mr. Lepe, there is a power issue. I request a 1 minute break.
Okay, all right, let's have a 1 minute break.
WhatsApp.
Hello? Hello? Yeah.
Yes.
We are still working, sir. I'll inform you when to start.
Okay.
They are switching over to diesel generator.
Excellent.
Wait for that.
That's
Dr.
fine.
Napi, very excellent. Excellent talk.
That's fine. And I noticed that Dr. Close is not on yet.
Oh, he's not here?
He should be. Possibly somebody should just give him a call.
I don't have his number.
Okay. I'm going to get my wife to give him a call.
Thank you.
Liz, here, phone him on my phone.
Is he the next speaker?
Yes, he's going to speak in conjunction with me.
Wonderful.
So,
your laws are flying too fast.
are you ready to continue?
I'm just one of the listeners in the Zoom chat. I'm not at the location.
Okay. So you're on the Zoom chat.
Yes.